Hey church, Pastor Matt here. Hope that you're doing well today. We are getting adjusted around our house to our new daughter, Em, who is home. And we went and saw her doctor this morning, and she's gained a little bit of weight, which is a good thing. Her bilirubin level unfortunately went back up, so we've got to do some work in trying to help her jaundice go away. So we go back to the doctor in a few days, but we're getting there day by day. Had a little bit less sleep over the last few nights than usual, but I tell you what, it's all right. Waking up multiple times in the night to go hang out with our cool little girl. So we want to thank everybody once again for your help and your support, your love and encouragement. We have gotten so many text messages and phone calls and emails and cookies and cakes, and it's really meant a lot to our family. And we look forward to you one day meeting our new little girl and watching Ollie go crazy for her new little sister. She likes to, what Ollie likes to do is Em will be like in her little crib just sleeping, and periodically throughout the day Ollie will come get you and go show you, hey, this is where she's at, just as a reminder. So Ollie is on top of things, making sure that we know where Em is 24/7. So she's our little helper. Just want to say once again, we miss everybody. And so thankful for each of you. And one of the things I want to do in this video is kind of give you an update on where we're at in terms of reopening the church. I want to thank you again for your grace and your patience. I planned to do this a week ago. And the day before I was going to make the video, Meg went into labor. So things got kind of chaotic in a short amount of time, and it's unfortunately it's made it kind of challenging to get to this. So and then with Em being in the NICU for 5 nights, we were kind of back and forth the whole time, and then getting home, getting settled in. So it took me a little bit longer to get to this than I would have liked. But once again, I appreciate your patience and your grace with me. Once again, just kind of give a realistic picture of what reopening the church is going to look like, and when we're looking at implementing this and reopening the church. So I've got a fair amount of notes in front of me. I know you can't see them, but they're right here in front of me, and I don't want to miss anything. So you're going to see me look down quite a bit, just looking through my notes, making sure that I've touched base on the things that I wanted to touch base on. But to get started, I wanted to begin by addressing Governor Kemp and the reopening of our state, and kind of address, like, what does that mean? Just to make sure that we're all on the same page when we talk about the reopening of the state. Perhaps even addressing what it doesn't mean, right? I don't know about you. For me, when I hear the words, we're going to reopen the state. We had a shelter in place that was in effect in our state back in the month of April, and at the end of April, going into May, Governor Kemp was going to lift this ban for certain businesses, certain restaurants, and hair salons and things, and we're going to reopen the state. For me, when I first hear that, when I first hear reopen the state, what comes to mind is, oh, good, like it's over, right? Like everything's over and everything's good, and we can go back to business as usual, and the state's reopened, so let's just get back into the swing of things. But unfortunately, that's not what reopening the state means, and that's not what our governor has in mind when he's talking about reopening the state. What Governor Kemp is doing is he's doing a really good job of protecting the rights of Georgia's business owners and Georgia citizens. Right? Government certainly is a good thing and it works in its proper context. But as American citizens, we celebrate freedom and liberty, and there are areas where the government It's not supposed to impose on those freedoms and on those liberties. And the reopening of the state, what Governor Kemp is doing is he is saying, hey, it's not my place, the governor, in the government, to tell you what to do. Instead, we're gonna put the decision back on the shoulders of the Georgia business owners and Georgia citizens. You make the choice. You make the decision for what you want to do, right? It's not our place as the government to tell you what to do, so you decide. And so he's protecting our rights, which is a good thing because rights are important. But what it doesn't mean is that we can just go back to business as usual. There is still a deadly virus that is unfortunately wreaking havoc in our country and on families. And as businesses can reopen, the government wants businesses and business owners to make that decision for themselves. What are you going to do about it? And some businesses have chosen to remain closed, right? Some of them have said, well, we're still not going to open because it's not safe. Others have said, well, we're going to open, but there are regulations, there are guidelines, there are rules they have to follow, and that were given out from the governor's office that you can find online. Things like if you're at a restaurant, every table is supposed to be at least 6 feet apart. They've raised the emphasis on sanitation. There are other things like that, but there are still regulations that businesses have to follow who decide to open. And so, when you read a lot of the governor's stuff, writings, and kind of like there's a website, georgia.org /COVID-19 biz, B-I-Z, guide. It'll show you all the things that they have to do, but you'll see on there this phrase of self-determination, right? This is what reopening the state means. The Governor Kemp wants businesses to self-determine. What are you going to do about it? And so it doesn't mean business as usual. So what does it mean? Well, a few weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I was a part of a conference call through the Georgia Baptist Mission Board with any and every Georgia Baptist pastor we were all invited. And we were connected with the governor's office. And Governor Kemp was in fact supposed to be the one who addressed the Georgia Baptist pastors. Unfortunately, something came up and he couldn't make it, so he sent a representative by the name of Brad Hughes. You'll hear me talk about Brad Hughes some throughout this video. And so we listened to the governor's office and what are they saying to us. And Brad Hughes made it very clear that the governor certainly wants the state to have the right to choose what they do, but it is the hope of the governor and the hope of our officials that Georgia citizens will continue to be safe and wise when it comes to the coronavirus, and sheltering in place is still the wisest thing to do. So he said very clearly, Brad Hughes said to us as pastors, he said, the governor is really thankful for the churches who have moved to online format for worship, and they're great, and they're very thankful that we've done that because it's helped. And the governor and the governor's office would hope that we would continue to do that because it's going to continue to flatten the curve and be the safest and wisest thing when there's a deadly virus going around. So the governor's office is hopeful that churches will continue to utilize the online format. However, they're saying, you make the choice. Right? We're not going to tell you what to do. You as a church have to decide what you want to do. Now, there are guidelines that we were given directly from the governor's office in regards to if a church decides to begin meeting on campus again and to reopen. And I want to walk you through some of them. I said these were given directly from the governor's office. The first one was said, let's say this was a few weeks ago when we had this meeting, but for the elderly, they should not attend any on-campus gathering, but instead they should remain sheltered in place, and view the online service. That's still the safest thing for elderly citizens because the coronavirus has had a greater impact in that age range. Now, we'll talk about this more in just a little bit, but on June the 12th, which is an important date for us, on June the 12th, which is a Friday, I believe, there is still a shelter in place in effect for those who are 65 and older right now in the state of Georgia, but that's going to be lifted on June the 12th. So as of right now, it's already advised from the governor's office that anyone 65 and older is remaining sheltered in place, period. But that's going to be lifted, as I said, June the 12th. But any church that decides to meet right this second, like if you're going to meet in the month of May, the governor's office is saying anyone over the age of 65 should stay home. That's the advice, and that's the guideline they're giving us. The second thing that was discussed is that anyone in attendance should wear a mask. Now, anyone and everyone who is in attendance should wear a mask. Hopefully, if you've been going out, you've been wearing a mask, and maybe you've gotten adjusted to it by now. The first time I went out with my mask on, it was kind of weird. But being in the hospital for the last week, I wore a mask more than I didn't wear a mask. So now I've gotten kind of adjusted to it. But when it comes back to a church gathering, if you're going to have a church gathering, it is highly recommended that anyone and everyone who comes onto campus wears a mask for safety. A third guideline given from the governor's office is pastors and churches should eliminate any and all congregating, right? So if you think about like a facility that has a lobby, which our facility doesn't really have a lobby, so to speak, but those places where groups kind of just hang out and gather and chit-chat, the governor's office says those are places that you should eliminate. Essentially, when a family shows up to the campus, they should get out of their car, they should go directly to their seat, they should remain seated, and when the service ends, it was instructed to us that when the worship service ends, you should release people by rows, right? If you think about this idea, what they're talking about, we don't have people congregate. Well, when a worship service ends and we say the closing prayer, what happens? Well, everybody stands up, right? And we start talking to one another, and we start hanging out with one another, and we start forming these little pockets. And those are the type of pockets that the governor's office is concerned about. It's when people start to get within the 6 foot guideline, and things can happen there that could be harmful. And so they've said, hey, when the service ends, rather than ending in dismissing, instead you should dismiss by family units so that your individual family can leave. And once you're out the door and you get into your car, the next family unit would be dismissed to leave. So they get their car, and then the next family unit, and so on and so forth. So it's not just one large dismissing, it's family unit by family unit. Look at my notes. The governor's office, protecting the elderly. Everyone should wear a mask, no congregating. A fourth thing, which I understand that these are not ideal. A fourth thing is that the governor's office made it very clear that we should eliminate the restroom in general. For right now, bathrooms should be shut down. And so if you come to the church gathering and you have to use the bathroom, the best thing would be for you to either hold it or to leave, to go home and use the restroom. But for sanitary purposes and for protecting everyone on the campus, it's recommended that churches close down their restrooms for the time being. It's recommended that there's no nursery and there's no children's church or no child care. If you bring your kids, they're going to stay with you. And really what they want to do is whoever lives in your house. Right, when we talk about a family unit, you hear me say that, what we're talking about is who lives in your home. So my family unit would be myself, Meg, Ollie, and M. And so if we were to come to a worship gathering, the four of us would stay together. And there'd be no nursery for Ollie. There'd be no nursery for M, which M would actually be all right now. She'd probably be pretty quiet. You have to deal with Ollie more than anything else. But it's recommended that those families stick together. So no nursery, no child care. You can do things like have the nursery available to a mom. So if a mom or a dad, you have a child that's kind of getting restless, and say, hey, if you want to take your child to the nursery, you can do that. However, it's recommended that you really don't do that, but you can, as long as that parent understands the risk, and they're taking their kids in there. If another family does that, it can be kind of bad. So the ideal thing is for kids to just stay with their family units and not leave. It's recommended that any and all family units remain 6 feet apart. So if you come with your family unit, that group that you live in the house with, that group can sit together. So it's not like I have to be 6 feet apart from Meg and 6 feet apart from Ollie and 6 feet apart from M, because we all live together anyway. So we can all sit together, but we would need to be 6 feet apart from the next family and from the next family. So it's recommended that those units remain 6 feet apart. Another guideline that's been given, this is moving on to the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, and I'm going to make this available for you in the attachments. I'm going to send this video out by an email, and there'll be an attachment for this. I want you to see some of these things that I'm looking at, because I want you to know that the ideas and the process and the strategy is not something that it just kind of came up with. These are things that have been discussed and debated and thought out by multiple pastors and church leaders ever since this started. I can tell you the first day this started, I talked to at least 3 pastors, if not 4, who were already talking about what's it going to look like when we get back. So I can promise you, pastors have been thinking about this the whole time. But continuing on, the Georgia Baptist Mission Board sent out a guideline, and you can read some of those. But one of the big ones that people are talking about is not having small groups on campus yet. So there'd be no Sunday school, no small group at all. It's just the worship gathering. But for the safety of our people and in order to regulate how many people are in the room, it's advised that a church have multiple services and limit those multiple services to a group, to a number, right? So I would say, 10 to 15 family units per service. So rather than having one big worship service, it'd be more like having one at 8 a.m., like a Sunday, one at 8 a.m., one at 9:30, and one at 11. And each one of those has space for 10 to 15 family units. And your family would have to sign up prior to that day. That's so that we know who's coming, and we don't have more than we need. So, you could have like a sign-up sheet. You send in, hey, my family wants to come to the 9:30 service this Sunday. We've got 6 people within our unit. Say, okay, and that's a slot. And another family email say, my family wants to come to the 11 o'clock service. We've got 3 people in our family unit. But that way we can say, 10 to 15 units per service. You can regulate how many people are in attendance rather than just one large gathering, which opens the door for congregating and missing out on the 6 feet space that's needed for the unit. So having multiple services is something that recommended by the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. To continue making these things not ideal, the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, as well as the governor's office, I forgot to mention this, they said the same thing. There should be no handshaking. There should be no hugging. There should be no bulletins, and there should be no hymnals. Those are all things that have the possibility for germs to be spread. So whether it's handshake, whether it's a hug, was a hymnal. A hymnal, you get germs on it, and then shut it, and somebody else gets the same hymnal, and your germs go to the next person, or you get the germs from the last person, whatever. But it's recommended that there's no bulletins handed out. Nothing is handed out. No hymnals, no handshaking, no hugging, no bathrooms. It's not necessarily ideal, to say the least. Another thing that is being considered by a lot of pastors, and I've talked with a lot of people about, is singing. Whether you realize it or not, when we sing, we spit. Right? We all do it. You can't not do it. We all spit when we sing. And the coronavirus, unfortunately, is spread through mucus, saliva, things like that. And so the idea of having a large group of people all spitting on each other because they're singing, it sounds like a great way to spread the virus. Now, of course, if you're wearing a mask, that's another thing. And like I said, the governor's office said anybody on your campus should wear a mask. So I think wearing a mask and singing should be safe. But it's an important topic. There's an article that was written. You can look it up online. It was in the LA Times. And I can't remember the name of the church or anything, but if you Google search LA Times and the coronavirus and a choir, there was a choir, and I want to say it was in the state of Washington, but wherever it was, there was a choir about a month and a half ago, that decided they wanted to have choir practice, even though the coronavirus was kind of in the first stages of entering our country. The choir decided to have rehearsal anyway. And so they did, and they practiced all the right things. They actually made everybody do hand sanitizer, and they all had to stand 6 feet apart. But they sung for an hour, and guess what? They all spit on each other, because you spit when you sing. And unfortunately, somebody in that group had the coronavirus, and within a matter of, I think, a few weeks, out of a choir of 60 members, 45 had contracted the virus. 3 were hospitalized and 2 had died because a group of people got together to sing. So it's actually a big deal for us to consider. And like I said, I think as long as people are wearing masks, it could be safe. But it's just something that we're thinking through. And pray for me and leadership. I mean, this is not easy. So having said all of that, getting down to laser focus on our church. What are we going to do? And I mentioned the guy Brad Hughes a little while ago, representative from the governor's office. He met with all the Georgia Baptist pastors through the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, and he said this, and it has resonated in my mind. I talked to Lex Bowen multiple times over the last few weeks, and we talk about this every time. Brad Hughes from the governor's office, he said, pastors, as you begin to think through your reopening process, you should do whatever you can defend. Do what you can defend. Now, what he means by that is whatever you do, whatever steps you decide to take in the reopening of your church campus, you should be able to defend your choices. Meaning that you're not going to exercise, rash thinking and just jump out of the boat and do whatever. You should be able to defend what you've decided. And if you can't defend it, then you shouldn't do it, right? And so I certainly want to heed that advice, because I think it's important. No matter what we do, I want to be able to defend it, because the reality is, whether we like it or not, there is this deadly virus that has been plaguing our country. And unfortunately, it has done damage. And it can do damage really quick. I don't know if you've seen some of the reports. There's some reports of the coronavirus. A person contracts it, and a really healthy person, and within 4 days they're dead. That's frightening. And the last thing that any of us want is to jump back in and for better or worse, somehow somebody has it. We didn't know it, and somebody in our own church family was to spread it or have it and give it to someone else in our church service because we were just kind of moving faster than needed. That sounds frightening to me. So as we think about our strategy and what we're going to do, we want to be able to defend the decisions we make. And I'll tell you, right now, I have, it is my heart that to go too slow rather than too fast. I would rather be overly cautious than not cautious enough. The thought that someone in our own faith family could potentially die from this because we've gone too fast makes me nervous, and it makes me scared. And as the state reopens and people are still watching the numbers for a potential second wave, right? I would rather observe data than be data. Right? I'd rather observe the numbers and see what's happening rather than be the data, right? That says, hey, this is what happened and this was contracted and yada, yada, yada. So when we talk about the reopening of our church, the date that we are looking at, as far as the first Sunday with some form of worship on our campus with physical bodies present, the first Sunday is going to be June 14th. Now, there's a reason we chose June 14th. You go back to what we're saying previously in our state right now, Governor Kemp has a shelter in place that is in effect for those who are 65 and older, as well as those who are perhaps more susceptible to catching the virus or diseases, especially have a poor immune system, things like that. And what I didn't want to do was have us start having worship services before the whole church could come, right? And if we were to start right this second, then we would have to tell our older members, you need to stay home. And I don't want to do that. When we come together, it's our goal to come together. So as long as the shelter in place for those who are 65 and older is lifted by June 12th, which is the game plan, then that means by June 14th, which is a Sunday, it would be the first day that we would have the go-ahead from our governor's office as far as sheltering in place for that age group, and then we can all be a part of it. So June 12th is our first date that we are looking at starting. However, as you probably started to get the picture with some of those guidelines, it's not going to look the same, and we've all gotta be okay with that. I was talking to Lex again. I was talking to him this morning, as a matter of fact, and he made the statement that the coronavirus has been he said it is a disruption, not an interruption. And what he means by that is it's not like we did church for this way for a long time, and then the coronavirus has come and it's interrupted us, and so we've hit a timeout. But then it's going to all go away, and then we just jump right back into business as usual. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at all. It's a disruption. And in fact, it's going to be completely different as we get started. And I want to encourage you to begin thinking about the reopening of our church campus through phases, right? Because there's going to be phases to this thing. Our ultimate goal is to one day, when it's safe, to get back and be in the sanctuary with everybody singing and hugging and shaking hands and doing whatever like that. We'd love for that to happen. The reality is, right now, we can't defend that because we know it's dangerous. So we want to do what we can defend. With that said, these phases beginning on June 14th, The first one is, well, let me say this, before I say it, let me say this. Although we're going to do on-campus worship gatherings, we're also going to continue doing the online stuff. Same thing as it's been, because the reality is we know that there are going to be some families that still aren't going to feel comfortable coming on June 14th, and that's perfectly fine. Like, we trust your opinion, and if your family, if you are a leader of your family and for the safety of your family, you still feel that coming back on campus at June 14th is not ideal, then we encourage you to stay home. Listen, I'm being honest with you. My family's not going to be there. With Meg having given birth to M, and we have a daughter who is, by June 14th, she'll be a little over a month old. She's still building an immunity system, and all kinds of things are happening. And I can pretty much tell you that on June 14th, Meg and Ollie and M won't be a part of it because they're not going to feel comfortable yet. And when I get home, because I'll be there, when I get home, they're going to make me take a shower and wash all my clothes and do all the things that are necessary to make sure that we can be safe within our home. So, opening June 14th through some phases, but the online stuff's going to continue. All right, I want you to know that for those who would prefer that. June 14th. Also, anyone who has any form of sickness, if you have a fever, right? If you have a temperature that morning, if you're sick, we're going to ask that you would still remain home and utilize the online service. So on June 14th, if you're making plans, you're going to be there, but in the days leading up to it, you find yourself having a fever, and you're going to know, it's up to you. We're going to ask that for the safety and well-being of those who are coming, that you would be willing to remain home and utilize the online service and get better, right? Get to feeling better. And then when you feel better and you feel comfortable, come on with us with our online or with our on-campus stuff. Now we will begin this, and they say these are phases. Our first phase, June 14th, we will have multiple services. So we're not going to have Sunday school. We're not going to have any type of small group gathering. We're going to ask small groups continue how they're going. I know we got some groups that are using some video conference stuff. I know we got groups that are using phone calls. And I've heard a lot of great things from those. And so I want to encourage you to just keep going that way and utilize those. But we will meet on campus for the worship gathering. However, we will have multiple services. So as I said earlier, this idea of having a service at 8, one at 9:30, one at 11, I can't guarantee those are going to be the exact times, but something like that. I'll give out more details and stuff the closer we get to June. But multiple services where your family is going to be asked to sign up prior to that Sunday. So the Monday before June 14th, we'll send out a sign-up sheet that will say, you register your family for whatever service you want to come to. Once that service fills up, it'll be closed. So if there's a particular service you want to go to, I'd recommend that you sign up early, because if it fills up, then it's going to be shut down. You'll only be able to go to one of the other ones. But there will be multiple services. Along those lines, we're going to begin in the fellowship hall. And the reason we're going to do that is because we have greater flexibility with seating. First, for starters, in the fellowship hall, we can move the chairs, whereas in the sanctuary, you can't move the pews. But along those lines too, and if you've ever been in the sanctuary with a small group, you know that it can feel kind of weird when you're in the sanctuary and there's 15 people or 20 people. And so the fellowship hall is going to give us a little bit of a more fuller feeling, I reckon we could say. I reckon. That's the country boy right there. But a little bit of a smaller feel. But we'll be in the fellowship hall. We can move chairs around. We can make sure that people are 6 feet apart. And we're going to need a sanitation team. So we'll have a service that meets at 8. people will go home, we're going to need a team of people who are willing to say, yeah, we'll stick around and we're going to wipe down the chairs and do what needs to happen so that the next group that comes at the 9:30 meeting, they'll have a sanitized facility to walk into. And when they leave, we've got to do it again, right? Sanitize the whole facility for the 11 o'clock group to show up. So there will be some moving parts. We'll need volunteers to help. If you're one of those that, hey, I'd be willing to stick around, sanitize with wipes and things like that, let Sue know, let somebody in our church office know, and we'll make that team. But multiple services in the fellowship hall, smaller services of 10 to 15 family units, and you'll sign up in the week leading up to it. We are going to ask that if you are in attendance, in fact, we're going to ask that everyone in attendance would wear a mask. That's going to be, once again, when it comes to things like singing, it's going to be very helpful. But just in general, we're going to ask that you wear a mask. I'm going to be wearing a mask. I will most likely be wearing the mask while I preach. And I've never preached with a mask on before, so we'll all be learning new things about each other. But it's going to be the safest step forward. So if you are in attendance, we're going to ask that you wear a mask. If you say, well, I don't want to wear a mask, that is perfectly fine. If you don't want to wear a mask, we're going to simply ask that you utilize the online worship service and remain home so that those who are on our campus would all have on a mask during their time. As I said, there won't be any small groups. There will be, and this is going to be important for us, and I know this is challenging, but there will be no handshaking and no hugs and no bulletins and no hymnals. I mentioned that earlier. Some of the guidelines the Georgia Baptist Mission Board gave. We're gonna follow those and listen to them. We will not have childcare. I know for some of the little ones that's going to be really tough, but we're not going to have childcare right now. We are going to listen to our governor and the governor's advice, and ask that you do not use the restroom while you're on our campus. Now we're talking about you're only coming for the worship service, and it's going to be slimmed down a little bit. We're not going to have as big of some of the stuff. So it'll be a little bit trimmed down. So you're talking about being on our campus for maybe all of 30 to 45 minutes. So by the time you leave your house, come and sit through the time, and then get in your car and go back home, maybe the course of like an hour, maybe an hour and 15, 20 minutes. And so we would ask that, before you leave your house, use your restroom, come on our campus, do our thing, and then when you finish, you get back home, go to the restroom again. Looking at my notes right now. Yeah. That's I'm trying to make sure I got everything I want to say. Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. I'll say it again real quick, kind of succinct. June 14th, multiple services in the fellowship hall with 10 to 15 family units that you'll need to pre-register prior to Sunday morning. You'll sit 6 feet apart from other family units. There can be no congregating. So you can't gather somewhere and just kind of hang out and chat. If you do, you will be gently and graciously asked to go to your seat. When the service finishes, we will dismiss by families. So one family at a time to maintain not congregating on the campus. You get in your car, and then you'll go home. And no things like bulletins, handshakes, hugs, hymnals, etc. That's the idea. Now, I know that when we look at that, it's certainly not what we're used to. It's certainly not ideal. But let me encourage you, okay? This is the first phase. It's not the final phase, right? This is the first steps towards getting us back on our campus and getting back to to where we were. So this is a little uncomfortable. It will be a little uncomfortable, but it's only a season, right? This isn't the final phase. This is not how it's going to be for the rest of our lives at Madison Street Baptist Church. This is for a short period of time where we can truly love our neighbors and we can truly love our congregation by maintaining 6 feet apart. We can truly love our neighbor by not shaking their hand. We can truly love our neighbor by not giving them a hug, because we're looking out for each other's interests, looking out for each other's safety, looking out for each other's well-being. Ultimately, we'll do this for a little bit, maybe through June and July, and then when we get to August, we can reevaluate and see where we're at. Maybe as a country, the coronavirus by that period of time will have begun to really see it kind of slowly dying out, and we'll be able to increase our time together and maybe take down some of those regulations. We might get to August and see a second wave begin to hit our country and have to reverse course. I don't know. We'll have to reevaluate them. But these are first steps for us to get back on our campus, to meet together, and to enjoy Jesus together as a family. As I said before, we want to do what we can defend, and I want to do what I can defend, and I feel like these steps are defendable. Starting on a date that's a few weeks away, 5 weeks away, I think where we're at right now. Having given a little bit more time for safety and for the coronavirus to hopefully can begin to go down in numbers and in cases. It gives us the opportunity to regulate how many people are on our campus and protect people by wearing masks and doing things like closing off the restrooms. We can defend these things and really think that if someone comes on our campus, when they leave our campus, they're going to be safe and they're going to be healthy. Now, these are steps. These are things I've discussed with Dwayne, our deacon chairman, and he's been very supportive right there and in full agreement. And so it's not just me coming up with these ideas. And as I said before, these are things that pastors have been talking about and thinking about for a long time now. And so I want to end with this kind of a pastoral moment. One of the challenges that we're going to face, that you're going to face, that our church is going to face, and that every church is going to face right now, one of the great challenges is the fact that our governor has given the church, every individual church, the right to reopen how they want. And what that means is that different churches are going to do different things. Some churches are going to open up really fast. I know of a church that met this last Sunday, it was May 10th. I know a congregation that met. Some churches are going to open up really slow. I know of another church that has made a decision to not meet all summer, and they will not meet again on campus at least until August. So there you have some that are going really fast, some that are going really slow, and you're going to have everything in between, right? And chances are you will know someone. You will know a church that somebody say, "Hey, this church is opening up really early. Why aren't we doing that?" Or the reverse of that. Hey, this church is not opening up until August. Why are we rushing into things? It's across the board. And one of the challenges is going to be just maintaining unity through this. You're right. Different churches are going to do different things. We've made the decisions that we've made because we feel like it's going to be safe. It's going to be good. We can defend it. We feel like it's going to help our church really get back to where we want to be. And other churches are going to make different decisions. So other pastors will think different. I can promise you this. I want to exercise great wisdom. I want to exercise great caution. I want to love our church well and protect us and help us. And so all these things have been thought through, prayed about, and considered for some time now. And it is my prayer that they will help us relaunch in a way that truly honors Jesus and truly loves and serves one another. So I'm excited about it. I can't wait to actually be back on campus with the multiple services and to pray together and to study God's Word together. If you have any questions or any concerns about any of the things we've talked about here, you can reach me anytime. Shoot me an email, msbccommerce@gmail.com, or give Sue a call in the office, and we'll touch base. Anything I can do to help answer your questions or serve any way, that's what we're here to do. Please know that I love you and that I miss you. My family loves you. My family misses you. And by God's grace, we are going to get through this stronger than ever. And so I pray that you have a good day, and I look forward to talking with you again real soon. God bless.